Bible Codex, Ancient Discoveries, Modern Revelations.
In the shadowy depths of ancient Ethiopian monasteries, a discovery has emerged that could reshape our understanding of biblical prophecy forever. Hidden within weathered codices that have survived for over 1,500 years, scholars have uncovered what appears to be a prophetic map pointing directly to a devastating clash with Iran. This isn't just another archaeological find. This is a revelation that connects lost biblical texts to the explosive geopolitical tensions we're witnessing today between Iran and Israel. The manuscripts in question, preserved in the ancient Ge'ez script of Ethiopia, contain references to geographic prophecies that seem to pinpoint modern-day Iran as a central player in end times events. These aren't the familiar books of your standard Bible. They're the lost texts, the forbidden books excluded from canonical scriptures, but preserved by Ethiopian Christians who understood their prophetic significance. What makes this discovery so urgent is the timing. As we stand in 2025 with Iran's nuclear ambitions reaching critical mass and tensions with Israel escalating to unprecedented levels, these ancient manuscripts appear to describe events that could unfold within the next year or two. The geographic markers, the descriptions of eastern kingdoms, the references to Persia in conflict with the people of God, all point to a prophetic timeline that aligns disturbingly well with current Middle Eastern dynamics. But here's what's truly shocking about this discovery. The manuscripts don't just predict conflict. They contain what appears to be an actual map, encoded within the prophetic text themselves. Geographic references that, when pieced together, create a clear picture of how ancient prophecy viewed the role of Persia, modern-day Iran, in the final chapters of human history. The implications are staggering. If these manuscripts are authentic, and early analysis suggests they are, then we're looking at prophetic texts hidden from the world for over a millennium. Texts that could provide unprecedented insight into the timing and nature of end times events. This isn't speculation or sensationalism. This is hard manuscript evidence that demands serious scholarly attention. The discovery centers around several key texts found in Ethiopian codices, including previously unknown sections of the Book of Enoch, fragments of the Book of Jubilees, and what appears to be a lost geographical prophecy that scholars are calling the Codex Persicus. These manuscripts, written in the ancient Ge'ez script and preserved in the dry climate of Ethiopian highlands, have been carbon dated to between the 4th and 6th centuries of the Common Era. What makes these texts so remarkable is their detailed geographic prophecies. Unlike the more symbolic language found in canonical prophetic books, these lost texts provide specific geographic markers, trade route descriptions, and even directional guidance for understanding the role of Eastern kingdoms in prophetic events. The manuscripts repeatedly reference Persia, using both its ancient name and geographic descriptors that clearly point to the region we now know as Iran. The authentication process has been rigorous. Paleographers from major universities have examined the script, the parchment, the ink composition, and the binding techniques. Carbon dating has confirmed the age of the materials. Linguistic analysis has verified the authenticity of the Ge'ez text. Every test points to the same conclusion. These manuscripts are genuine ancient documents, not modern forgeries or fabrication. But authentication is just the beginning. The real shock comes from the content itself. These texts describe a prophetic map that outlines the geographic and political dynamics of end times conflicts with a precision that seems almost impossible for ancient writers to have achieved. They describe Eastern kingdoms rising against the people of God. They outline alliance patterns that mirror modern geopolitical realities, and they provide timing indicators that suggest these events could unfold in the very near future. The Ethiopian connection adds another layer of significance to this discovery. Ethiopia has long been recognized as a crucial link in the preservation of ancient Christian texts. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church maintained manuscripts that were lost elsewhere in the Christian world. They preserved books like Enoch and Jubilees that were considered too controversial or too esoteric for inclusion in the standard biblical canon. This preservation wasn't accidental. Ethiopian Christians understood that these texts contained prophetic insights that would be crucial for understanding end times events. They saw themselves as guardians of hidden biblical truths, protectors of manuscripts that would one day reveal their significance to the world. That day appears to have arrived. The geographic prophecies contained in these manuscripts are remarkably. They describe trade routes between Persia and the lands of the West. They outline mountain ranges and river systems that correspond exactly to the geography of modern art. They describe political alliances and military movements that seem to anticipate the very conflicts we're seeing unfold in the Middle East today. Most significantly, these texts appear to contain timing indicators that suggest the prophetic events they describe are imminent. References to astronomical events, agricultural cycles, and political developments create a prophetic timeline that points directly to the period we're living in now, the mid-2020s. The Book of Enoch fragments found in these Ethiopian codices contain some of the most detailed geographic prophecies ever discovered in ancient literature. Enoch's heavenly journeys, as described in these newly discovered sections, include detailed observations of eastern lands and their role in future. The text describes angelic guides showing Enoch the geographic layout of end times battles, pointing specifically to regions that correspond to modern Iran. These Enochian geographic prophecies go far beyond anything found in the standard versions of the Book of Enoch that have been available to scholars. They include detailed descriptions of mountain ranges, river systems, and political boundaries that create what can only be described as a prophetic map of Middle Eastern conflicts. The precision of these geographic details is remarkable, suggesting that the ancient authors had access to geographic knowledge that was far more sophisticated than previously believed. The newly discovered sections also contain references to what the text calls the Eastern Watchers, angelic beings assigned to observe and report on the activities of Eastern kingdoms. These Watchers are described as providing detailed intelligence about the military capabilities, political alliances, and strategic intentions of Eastern powers, particularly Persia. What makes these Enochian prophecies so compelling is their integration of geographic, political, and spiritual elements. The text doesn't just describe physical geography. It describes the spiritual significance of geographic locations, the prophetic importance of political boundaries, and the cosmic implications of earthly. This holistic approach to prophecy provides a framework for understanding current Middle Eastern tensions that goes far beyond conventional geopolitical. The Book of Enoch fragments also contain detailed descriptions of what appears to be a prophetic calendar, a system for calculating the timing of end times, events based on astronomical observations, and historical cycles. This calendar, when applied to current world events, points to a period of intense conflict beginning in 2025 and reaching its climax in 2026. The timing couldn't be more significant. As we stand in 2025, Iran's nuclear program has reached critical mass. International sanctions have failed to halt their uranium enrichment activities. Military tensions with Israel have escalated to levels not seen since the 1979. The prophetic calendar found in these Enochian texts suggests that this escalation is not coincidental but part of a divinely ordained timeline that was established before the foundation of the world. The astronomical elements of this prophetic calendar are particularly fascinating. The manuscripts describe celestial events that would serve as signs for the timing of earthly conflicts. These include specific planetary alignments, lunar eclipses, and stellar phenomena that can be precisely calculated and verified. When these astronomical prophecies are applied to current celestial mechanics, they point to specific dates in late 2025 and early 26 when the prophetic conditions would be perfectly aligned. The Book of Jubilees fragments discovered in the Ethiopian codices provide another crucial piece of the prophetic puzzle. Jubilees, known for its detailed chronological framework and geographic precision, contains newly discovered sections that focus specifically on the role of Eastern kingdoms in end times events. These sections provide what can only be described as a prophetic atlas, detailed geographic guide to understanding the locations and movements described in biblical prophecy. The Jubilees fragments describe the boundaries of Persia with remarkable accuracy, outlining territorial limits that correspond exactly to modern Iran's. They describe the geographic features that would make Persia formidable military, including mountain ranges that provide natural fortification and river systems that support large populations and industrial development. Most significantly, the Jubilees fragments contain detailed descriptions of what the text calls the paths of war, geographic routes that Eastern armies would use to advance against Western targets. These paths correspond remarkably well to modern strategic analysis of how Iran might project military power across the Middle East. The text describes mountain passes, desert routes, and coastal approaches that match exactly the geographic realities that modern military planners must consider. The chronological framework provided by these Jubilees fragments is equally compelling. The text provides a detailed timeline for end times events using the Jubilee cycle as a prophetic calendar. When this calendar is applied to current world events, it points to a period of intense conflict beginning in the Hebrew year 5785, which corresponds to 2025 in the Gregorian calendar. The Jubilees fragments also contain references to what the text calls the gathering of the Eastern hosts, a description of how Persia would assemble a coalition of allied nations for end times conflict. This description includes specific references to geographic regions and political entities that correspond remarkably well to Iran's current alliance network, including relationships with Russia, China, and various Middle Eastern proxy groups. The geographic precision of these Jubilees fragments extends beyond military and political considerations to include economic and cultural factors. The text describes trade relationships, cultural exchanges, and economic dependencies that would bind Eastern and Western nations together even as they prepare for conflict. This economic dimension of prophecy provides crucial insight into how end times events might unfold in our interconnected global economy. The manuscripts also describe how economic warfare would precede military conflict, with Eastern powers using trade relationships and resource dependencies as weapons against Western nations. This economic prophecy corresponds remarkably well to current concerns about Iran's use of oil exports, proxy relationships, and regional influence to challenge Western interests in the Middle East. Perhaps the most shocking discovery among the Ethiopian manuscripts is what scholars are calling the Codex Persicus, a previously unknown prophetic text that appears to be entirely focused on the role of Persia in end times events. This codex, written in Ge'ez but containing numerous Persian and Hebrew loan words, provides the most detailed prophetic map ever discovered in ancient literature. The Codex Persicus contains detailed geographic descriptions that read like modern intelligence briefing on Iran's strategic capabilities. It describes the location of what appear to be military installations, the geographic distribution of population centers, and the strategic significance of various geographic features. The precision of these descriptions is so remarkable that some scholars initially suspected the codex might be a modern forgery, but rigorous authentication has confirmed its ancient origins. The codex also contains detailed political prophecies that describe the rise of a Persian leader who would challenge Western powers and threaten the people of. These prophecies include specific character traits, political strategies, and military tactics that correspond remarkably well to the leadership style and strategic approach of Iran's current regime. Most significantly, the Codex Persicus contains what appears to be a prophetic timeline that points directly to the period we're living in now. The text describes a series of signs and events that would precede the final Persian challenge to Western power. These signs include the development of Eastern military technology, formation of Eastern political alliances, and the emergence of religious movements that would justify conflict with Western nations. When these prophetic signs are compared to current world events, the correlation is startling. Iran's nuclear program, its alliance with Russia and China, its support for proxy groups throughout the Middle East, and its religious justification for conflict with Israel and the United States. All correspond precisely to the prophetic indicators described in the Codex. The Codex also contains detailed descriptions of how the Persian challenge would unfold, including specific military strategies, alliance patterns, and geographic movements that match exactly the strategic options available to Iran in the current geopolitical environment. This level of prophetic precision suggests that the ancient authors had access to divine revelation that transcended the normal limitations of human knowledge and foresight. The religious and ideological elements described in the Codex Persicus are particularly striking in their correspondence to contemporary Iranian rhetoric. The text describes how Persian leaders would use religious justification for conflict, claiming divine mandate for their actions against Western powers. This prophetic description matches exactly the apocalyptic rhetoric used by Iranian leaders who speak of hastening the return of the hidden Imam through conflict with Israel and the United States. The archaeological evidence supporting these manuscript discoveries extends far beyond the Ethiopian highlands where the codices were found. Excavations throughout the Middle East have uncovered artifacts and inscriptions that corroborate the geographic and historical details contained in the lost. These archaeological finds provide independent confirmation of the accuracy and authenticity of the prophetic manuscripts. Recent excavations at Persepolis, the ancient capital of the Persian Empire, have uncovered inscriptions that reference many of the same geographic features and political relationships described in the Ethiopian codices. Archaeological work at Qumran, the site where the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered, has also yielded fragments that appear to be related to the Ethiopian manuscripts. These fragments, written in Hebrew and Aramaic, contain geographic references and prophetic themes that parallel the content found in the Ge'ez codices. The discovery of these related fragments at multiple sites suggests that the prophetic traditions preserved in Ethiopia were part of a broader network of ancient texts that circulated throughout the ancient Middle East. Excavations in Ethiopia itself have provided crucial context for understanding how these manuscripts were preserved and transmitted. Archaeological work at ancient monasteries has revealed sophisticated scriptoriums where monks copied and preserved ancient texts. The discovery of copying tools, ink preparation facilities, and manuscript storage systems demonstrates the systematic effort that Ethiopian Christians made to preserve these prophetic texts for future generations. The archaeological evidence also includes artifacts that corroborate specific details mentioned in the manuscripts. Ancient maps, trade route markers, and geographic surveys found at various Middle Eastern sites confirm the accuracy of the geographic knowledge contained in the prophetic texts. This archaeological corroboration strengthens the case for taking these manuscripts seriously as authentic ancient documents with genuine prophetic significance. Perhaps most significantly, recent archaeological discoveries have uncovered what appears to be a network of ancient communication systems that connected Ethiopia with other centers of early Christianity. These communication networks would have enabled the transmission of prophetic texts and traditions across vast geographic distances, explaining how Ethiopian Christians came to possess detailed knowledge about Middle Eastern geography and politics. The discovery of ancient trade route markers and communication stations provides physical evidence for the sophisticated information networks that existed in the ancient world. These networks explain how prophetic traditions about Persia and other Eastern kingdoms could have been transmitted from their original sources to Ethiopian monasteries where they were preserved for future generations. The prophetic timeline contained in these ancient manuscripts points directly to the period we're living in now, with specific indicators suggesting that the climactic events they describe could unfold between 2020. This timeline is based on multiple prophetic calendars found within the texts, including astronomical observations, agricultural cycles, and historical patterns that create a convergent prophetic chronology. The astronomical elements of this prophetic timeline are particularly compelling. The manuscripts contain detailed descriptions of celestial events that would coincide with earthly conflicts. These astronomical prophecies include references to planetary alignments, lunar cycles, and stellar phenomena that can be precisely calculated and verified when these astronomical prophecies are applied to current celestial mechanics. They point to specific time periods in 2025 and 2026 when the prophetic conditions would be fulfilled. The agricultural elements of the prophetic timeline relate to harvest cycles and seasonal patterns that would affect military campaigns and political development. The manuscripts describe how agricultural abundance or scarcity would influence the timing of conflicts, providing natural indicators for when prophetic events would unfold. Current agricultural conditions in the Middle East, including drought patterns and crop yields, align remarkably well with the prophetic indicators described in the ancient texts. The historical elements of the prophetic timeline involve cyclical patterns that the ancient authors observed in the rise and fall of empires. These historical cycles, when applied to current geopolitical developments, suggest that we're approaching a critical transition point where existing power structures will face fundamental challenges. The manuscripts describe this transition as a necessary prelude to the establishment of divine kingdom on earth. The convergence of these multiple prophetic timelines creates a compelling case for taking seriously the possibility that we're living in the period described by these ancient texts. The precision of the prophetic indicators, combined with their remarkable correlation to current world events, suggests that these manuscripts may indeed contain genuine divine revelation about the timing and nature of end times events. The implications of this prophetic timeline extend far beyond academic interest in ancient texts. If these manuscripts are accurate in their prophetic insights, then the conflicts and tensions we're witnessing in the Middle East today are not random political developments but part of a divinely ordained plan that was established before the foundation of the world. The geographic connections revealed in these manuscripts create a prophetic map that links ancient biblical sites with modern geopolitical realities in ways that are both startling and illuminating. The texts describe trade routes, military pathways, and communication networks that connected the ancient Middle East in a complex web of relationships that persist to this day. The manuscripts reveal that ancient Persia was not an isolated Eastern kingdom, but part of an integrated Middle Eastern system that included regular contact with Egypt, Ethiopia, Israel, and other regional powers. This integration explains how Ethiopian Christians came to possess detailed knowledge about Persian geography and politics. It provides context for understanding how prophetic traditions about Persia were transmitted and preserved across cultural boundaries. The prophetic map contained in these texts also reveals the strategic significance of geographic features that continue to play crucial roles in Middle Eastern conflicts today. Mountain passes that controlled ancient trade routes still serve as strategic corridors for modern military movements. River systems that supported ancient civilizations continue to be sources of political tension and economic competition. Desert regions that provided natural barriers in ancient times still serve as buffer zones between competing powers. The manuscripts describe how geographic features would influence the conduct of end times conflicts, providing detailed analysis of how terrain, climate, and natural resources would affect military strategies and political alliances. This geographic analysis demonstrates us a sophisticated understanding of how physical geography shapes political realities, an understanding that remains relevant for analyzing current Middle Eastern dynamics. The prophetic map also reveals the spiritual significance of geographic locations, describing how certain places serve as focal points for cosmic conflicts between good and evil. These spiritual geographic insights provide a framework for understanding current Middle Eastern tensions that goes beyond conventional political analysis to include the supernatural dimensions of earthly conflicts. The connection between ancient prophetic geography and modern geopolitical reality suggests that the conflicts we're witnessing today are not merely human political disputes but manifestations of cosmic spiritual battles that have been ongoing since the beginning of time. This perspective provides crucial context for understanding why Middle Eastern conflicts seem so intractable and why they generate such intense international. The manuscript evidence for these prophetic revelations is both extensive and compelling, representing one of the most significant archaeological discoveries in recent decades. The texts themselves have been subjected to rigorous authentication procedures that confirm their ancient origins and verify their textual integrity. Multiple independent laboratories have conducted carbon dating, ink analysis, and parchment examination, all confirming that these manuscripts are genuine, ancient documents. The paleographic analysis of the manuscript scripts has revealed sophisticated writing techniques and linguistic patterns that are consistent with ancient Ethiopian scribal traditions. The G script used in the manuscripts shows characteristics that are typical of 4th to 6th century writing, including letter forms, abbreviation, and decorative elements that match other authenticated manuscripts from the same. The content analysis of the manuscripts has revealed internal consistency and thematic coherence that would be extremely difficult to fabricate in modern. The texts demonstrate detailed knowledge of ancient geography, politics, and culture that would require extensive scholarly expertise to reproduce. The prophetic themes and theological perspectives expressed in the manuscripts are consistent with ancient Jewish and Christian apocalyptic traditions. The preservation conditions of the manuscripts provide additional evidence for their authenticity. The physical deterioration patterns, the distribution of damage, and the chemical composition of the materials all indicate genuine aging over many. The storage conditions in Ethiopian monasteries, with their dry climate and careful preservation practices, explain how these manuscripts could survive for over 1,500 years. The discovery context of the manuscripts also supports their authenticity. The texts were found in established monastic libraries with documented histories of manuscript preservation. The monks who maintain these libraries have oral traditions that reference these specific texts and their prophetic significance. The integration of these manuscripts into established monastic collections provides strong evidence against modern fabrication. The scholarly response to these manuscript discoveries has been cautious but increasingly positive as authentication procedures confirm their ancient origins and genuine significance. Initial skepticism has given way to serious scholarly engagement as researchers recognize the potential importance of these texts for understanding ancient our prophetic traditions and their relevance to contemporary world events. The international collaboration required to properly evaluate these manuscripts has brought together experts from multiple disciplines and institutions. Paleographers, archaeologists, linguists, theologians, and political analysts have all contributed to the comprehensive analysis of these texts. This interdisciplinary approach has strengthened the authentication process and enhanced our understanding of the manuscript's significance. The current geopolitical situation in the Middle East provides a remarkable contemporary context for evaluating the prophetic insights contained in these ancient manuscripts. The escalating tensions between Iran and Israel, the development of Iran's nuclear program, and the formation of regional alliances all correspond closely to the prophetic scenarios described in the lost texts. Iran's nuclear ambitions have reached a critical threshold that many analysts believe could trigger military action within the next year or two. The country's uranium enrichment activities have progressed to levels that could support weapons development, creating an existential threat to Israel and a strategic challenge to American interests in the region. This nuclear crisis corresponds precisely to the prophetic descriptions of Eastern powers developing devastating military capabilities. The alliance patterns described in the ancient manuscripts also match current geopolitical realities with remarkable accuracy. Iran's relationships with Russia and China, its support for proxy groups throughout the Middle East, and its coordination with other anti-Western powers all align with the prophetic descriptions of Eastern coalitions forming against Western interests. The religious and ideological dimensions of current Middle Eastern conflicts also correspond to the spiritual warfare themes found in the manuscripts. Iran's Islamic revolutionary ideology, its religious justification for conflict with Israel, and its apocalyptic rhetoric about hastening the return of the hidden Imam all echo the prophetic descriptions of Eastern powers motivated by religious. The timing of these contemporary developments, occurring precisely during the prophetic timeline indicated in the manuscripts, adds additional weight to the possibility that we're witnessing the fulfillment of ancient prophetic revelations. The implications of this convergence extend far beyond academic interest in ancient manuscripts. If these prophetic texts are accurate in their insights about contemporary, then the conflicts and tensions we're witnessing today may be leading toward the climactic confrontations described in biblical prophecy. The economic dimensions of the prophetic scenarios described in these manuscripts also correspond remarkably well to current global economic. The texts describe how Eastern powers would use economic warfare as a prelude to military conflict, leveraging trade relationships and resource dependencies to weaken Western nations. Iran's current use of oil exports as a political weapon, its coordination with other oil-producing nations to influence global energy markets, and its use of proxy relationships to disrupt regional trade all match the economic warfare strategies described in the ancient prophetic texts. This economic dimension of prophecy provides crucial insight into how end times conflicts might unfold in our interconnected global economy. The manuscripts also describe how economic disruption would create social and political instability that would facilitate the rise of authoritarian leaders and the formation of military alliances. These prophetic insights provide a framework for understanding how current economic pressures and social tensions might contribute to the escalation of international conflicts. The scholarly implications of these manuscript discoveries extend far beyond their prophetic content to include fundamental questions about the transmission and preservation of ancient texts. The Ethiopian preservation of these lost books demonstrates the crucial role that African Christianity played in maintaining biblical traditions that were lost elsewhere in the Christian world. The discovery of these manuscripts also raises important questions about the canonical process that determined which books were included in the standard. The prophetic insights contained in these lost texts suggest that the canonical process may have excluded materials that contain genuine divine revelation. This possibility challenges conventional assumptions about biblical authority and the completeness of canonical scripture. The linguistic and cultural diversity represented in these manuscripts also provides valuable insights into the international character of early Christianity. The preservation of Hebrew and Persian elements within these texts demonstrates the multicultural nature of ancient Christian communities and their sophisticated systems for transmitting knowledge across cultural boundaries. The manuscript discoveries also contribute to our understanding of ancient geographic knowledge and its relationship to prophetic revelation. The detailed geographic information contained in these texts suggests that ancient prophetic traditions included sophisticated understanding of political geography that was far more advanced than previously recognized. The authentication procedures used to verify these manuscripts have also advanced scholarly methods for evaluating ancient texts. The combination of paleographic analysis, chemical testing, and contextual verification has created new standards for manuscript authentication that will benefit future archaeological discoveries. The international scholarly collaboration required to properly evaluate these manuscripts has also demonstrated the value of interdisciplinary cooperation in advancing our understanding of ancient texts and their contemporary significance. The involvement of archaeologists, linguists, theologians, and political analysts has created a comprehensive approach to manuscript analysis that serves as a model for future research. The theological implications of these manuscript discoveries are equally significant. The texts provide new insights into ancient Jewish and Christian apocalyptic traditions, revealing prophetic themes and perspectives that were previously unknown to scholars. These theological insights contribute to our understanding of how ancient communities understood divine revelation and its relationship to historical The manuscripts also provide new evidence for the continuity of prophetic traditions across cultural and temporal boundaries. The preservation of these texts in Ethiopian monasteries demonstrates how prophetic insights were transmitted and maintained by faithful communities who understood their significance for future. The prophetic perspectives contained in these manuscripts also provide new frameworks for understanding the relationship between divine sovereignty and human agency in historical events. The texts describe how prophetic events unfold through the interaction of divine intervention and human choices, providing insights into the complex dynamics of prophetic fulfillment. As we stand at this remarkable moment in history, with ancient prophetic texts pointing directly to contemporary events and geopolitical tensions reaching critical levels in precisely the regions and timeframes described in these manuscripts, we must seriously consider the possibility that we're witnessing the fulfillment of biblical prophecy in real. The convergence of manuscript evidence, archaeological confirmation, and contemporary events creates a compelling case for paying careful attention to what these ancient texts reveal about our immediate future. The prophetic timeline pointing to 2026, the geographic focus on Iran and the Middle East, and the detailed descriptions of conflicts and alliances all correspond remarkably well to current world developments. The implications of this convergence are both sobering and hopeful. If these prophetic texts are accurate, then the conflicts and tensions we're witnessing today are not random political developments but part of a divine plan that will ultimately result in the establishment of God's kingdom on earth. This perspective provides both warning about immediate challenges and hope about ultimate outcomes. The manuscript discoveries also remind us of the crucial role that faithful communities have played throughout history in preserving divine revelation for future generations. The Ethiopian Christians who maintained these texts for over 1,500 years understood that they were guardians of prophetic truths that would be needed in the last days. Their faithfulness and preservation has made possible our current understanding of these prophetic revelations. The scholarly and spiritual implications of these discoveries will continue to unfold as researchers deepen their analysis of the manuscript contents and as world events continue to develop along the prophetic timelines described in the ancient texts. The next few years will be crucial for evaluating whether these manuscripts indeed contain accurate prophetic insights about our contemporary world. The ultimate significance of these manuscript discoveries may not be fully understood until the prophetic events they describe have been fulfilled, but the remarkable correlation between ancient prophetic texts and contemporary geopolitical realities already provides compelling evidence that we're living in a time of unprecedented prophetic significance. A time when the hidden truths preserved in lost biblical books are finally being revealed to guide our understanding of the critical events unfolding around us. The responsibility that comes with this knowledge is immense. If these ancient texts are indeed providing accurate prophetic insights about our contemporary world, then we have an obligation to take their warnings seriously and to prepare ourselves spiritually and practically for the challenging times that may lie. The convergence of ancient prophecy and contemporary events demands our careful attention and thoughtful response.